In this episode, we're talking about the 5 biggest mistakes that I've made in growing a multi-million-dollar company. And you know what? These aren't mistakes that I would take back. So want to hear what they are? Keep listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we're going to go a different angle, a different direction than what we've done in the past. Normally we talk about how to improve your life or improve your business or things that you should be doing. Today we're going to talk about things to avoid. We're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that I feel like I've made in business. Now, let me be very clear. These are not things that I wish I hadn't done. And that we'll talk deeper in that towards the end of this podcast, but every single one of these things that I'm about to tell you, I'm incredibly grateful that I had gone through and I had experienced. And these aren't things that if I had to go back and redo everything that I would skip. I would live through these experiences again because of the gifts that they gave me. But I do want to talk about it because I have a knowing from these experiences. I have the experience of it. I have the knowledge or the knowing of it. And if there's something that you can learn from it, learn from my experience, learn from my knowing, I want to be able to give that to you. And so when I go through these 5 things, I think the most valuable thing that you could do is look at what you're currently doing. I wouldn't look at how am I going to avoid these things in the future, but maybe look at what are you doing and are you making some of these mistakes right now? You know, some of these mistakes could have taken me 6 months to avoid or to change, not avoid, but to change, where you might be in the middle of one right now and you might be able to learn the lesson and shorten the amount of time that you're going through that experience. And so that's what I want you guys to look for. Again, I don't want you to think these things are bad. I don't want you to try to avoid these things. I want you to really look at this and go, does this apply to me now? And if so, how do I shorten the experience of it, but still learn the lesson that these things will provide? And I think that's one of the best places you can operate from when we go through these things. So let's start with number 1. One of the biggest mistakes I made when growing my business was not focusing on teams, my team, and systems. And what we want to look for, and I'm just going to kind of give you the solution, the thing that has helped me fix all of this, was that I really look at 70%. And you guys hear me say that all the time. 70% perfect is perfect. 100% perfect is failure. And I really look at how do we build a system or a team that can execute on what I expect 70% of the way, because then we can scale that. That becomes replicatable. We can start to scale it. We can grow a lot faster if we're executing when things hit 70%, because we're taking more actions, we're doing more things, we're making more progress than if we would have waited for it to be 80, 90, 100%. And I was reading an article the other day, and I think it was Jeff Bezos who said that his outlook on meetings is that as long as we structure meetings so they're short, they're to the point, they're less frequent, and I'm making a decision with 70% of the information that I need, then we get to execute faster, we get to move faster, we make more progress because of that. And he said, if I'm waiting to get 90% of everything that I need to know to make a decision, we're waiting too long on making a decision. And so the team, for me, that's kind of the solution that we've had. Now, I'll tell you guys right now, I hate developing systems with a passion. I hate structure. I hate it. Like, my team tries to put me in the middle of a structure and I'm not the best. It's definitely one of the areas where I struggle the most. I kind of live my life by a calendar now, but even that, I don't enjoy that. I don't like waking up and being like, great, I have 5 things that I have to do today and it's on this timeline and not mine. I hate logging into Asana, our project management software, and just like looking at all the structure in there. I just don't like it. But I've come to realize that it's a necessary thing. And so I do my best to create it, but also not to create it, but I do my best to follow it and to live by it and run the business by it because it has to be. But this is also why I don't run my business. I have people on the team like Taylor and Matt and Jackie and Emily and Brittany that all operate with structure. They create structure within their position. And as Taylor basically runs the company and Matt runs the agency, and they create all the structure in the teams. But it's required. That stuff is absolutely required in order for you to grow your business. Now, it's not one of these things where you go, okay, great, Brandon, I'm just new. I don't have a team yet. I don't have, all of that stuff yet. I don't need the structure. It's like, yeah, you do. You need the structure to stay focused, to know what you're going to do that day, to move the needle forward, make sure you're focusing on the right things. If you have a goal, you have to work backwards on what needs to happen in order to hit that goal, and you need to create the structure around it. But like James Wedmore always says, the more structure you create in your business, the more freedom it gives you in your life. And I can tell you firsthand, I've never had as much freedom as I've had in the last 2 years of my business than ever. So like the last, and even this last year, when we went right into quarantine, everyone was working remote and from home. We just finished out a launch, and I had the most time off that I think I've ever had in the business in that month. And it was amazing and it was great, but it only happened because of the team and the structure. Things got done without it requiring my time. And here's the thing that most people don't realize is that you, the entrepreneur, you, the creator of this life and business that you're trying to create, you need the structure and you need this machine to be running so that it gives you more time to operate in what you need, in the area that you need to be operating. So don't forget that if you're growing your business, there's a reason why it's growing. And I can tell you guys, when I first started my company and we're doing YouTube, I was doing YouTube videos and all of this stuff, we actually started to get traction. I started to get the following because I loved creating the content. I loved it. And I was good at it, and it was fun, and it was creative, and I loved it. And our company started to take off. I started to get followers and fans and an email list, and I started to do all this stuff. But then something happened. I had to now focus on launching. So I had to focus on a webinar and putting those pieces together. And I had to focus on a sales page and a checkout page and fulfillment and working with the students and working with our clients and all of this stuff. And there was no process to anything. So everything I had to go and do, even the simple act of someone saying, I want to get you on our podcast, let's figure out a time, this email back and forth, because I didn't take the time to set up a Calendly link, that takes time away. And what that time takes away from is the thing that grew the business in the first place. The thing that grew our audience was me being creative, waking up, making videos every day, which is what I loved. I was happy. I was in my zone of genius. But then we started to grow, and as we grew, all of these other things took me away from what was actually growing the business. And because of that, the business started to plateau. Nothing was working. Our launches weren't really all that great. Why? Because I was focusing on all these things. I was spending 15 minutes trying to figure out a time to speak to someone instead of just taking 15 minutes and setting up a Calendly account and sending them a link. So there's small things you can be doing at all levels inside of your business to start systemizing things. So that's just part one of the equation, is the system so the team can operate. But number two is actually hiring a freaking team. There's a lot of you right now on this episode listening to this podcast that don't have a team. You're trying to do it all yourself. Even if it's a contractor, even if it's a part-time virtual assistant, it doesn't matter. You need people to do the things inside the company that take the time away from you being in the place that you want to be, being in the place that's actually going to grow the business. So editing videos and certain things like that, you can hire a video editor. You can hire someone for $2, $3, $4 an hour overseas, if that's all you can afford, to start posting on social media. Give them a process, tell them what to do, give the requirements. Here's how we operate. Here's the framework of how we write the copy. Take the time to do that so that you can plug them in, and then they can go execute on it so that it frees you up to go back and do the things that you want to do. And every entrepreneur, every business owner right now should be hiring some sort of team. You want to hire before you think you're ready. And the only reason why you're saying, Brandon, I don't need a team now, is because you've never hired a team. Because the second you get it, I can tell you right now, the thought that's going to come across your head is, why did I wait so long? So you have to hire the team. And you guys know, if you've been listening for a while, the moment I hired Taylor, it was me walking off the cliff hoping the net appeared, but it was a thing that I had to do because I was committed to the business, which goes back to an episode we recorded last week where I talk about your commitment level in your business, where a local business owner, even if they have a failing business, is more committed because they've taken out a loan, they've gotten space, they have all these bills, they're hiring a team, they're doing all the things they need to do. But a lot of us will live by the circumstances. I can't afford this, or we get off the hook a little easier because we have an online business. It doesn't take a lot of capital. We can kind of play it off as like a little hobby and say one day when it grows, then I'll hire a team. But ironically, what happens is it doesn't grow because you don't have the team. So for me, mistake number one is not hiring a team sooner, even if it was like a virtual team. And then number two, not having systems and structure for that team to operate within when I did have the team. Because then what it did is it caused me to start to manage and micromanage and be on top of them and all of that stuff versus letting a system do the majority of that style of work. So that's mistake number one. And it left me with a lot of great lessons. But that also leads me right into number two, which is emotional reactions and decision making. And this one is something I still need to master. Have not mastered it at all, but I would, where back then 90% of my decisions might have come from an emotional state, 90% of my communication may have come from a emotional state. I would say it's much less now. And it continues to be much less because I continue to pull myself out of these scenarios and give myself that 30,000 foot view. So when I'm talking about the 30,000 foot view, the analogy or the metaphor that I like using is imagine trying to figure out how to navigate New York City when you're down in the ground and everyone's running around and going crazy and the cars are zooming and stuff, and you have no idea really where you are, not really how to get to where you want to go, but you want to get there anyways, versus being cool, calm, collected, getting in an elevator, taking up to the top of the Empire State Building, looking down and going, oh, yeah, I know where to go. It's so clear now. And there's a couple reasons why we want to do this. One, we make better decisions inside of our company. We get clearer on where we want to go. But number two is it gives us a new level of thinking and a new level of communication. When your mind is going busy with these thoughts, like, I can't believe they did that and this, and oh my God, I'm so angry because this person didn't listen to what I told them to do, and you start getting in that place, it's not a very empowering or inspiring place of communication for when you talk to your team. How do you expect them to be empowered and inspired and wanting to do their best when you're speaking in anger towards them? And what's ironic is a lot of the times, because you don't have the team in the system, things fall apart, and then you make emotional decisions and emotional communication, and now you're just double stacking mistakes. And it's not really your team's fault sometimes. It's maybe you had a lack of system and you had a lack of communicating how to execute on what you wanted. And then because they don't do it, then you start to react out of emotion when really it's your fault. You need to take responsibility for your business and your communication. But what I like to tell people is you want to be the Vaseline to the chaos. When the chaos or the mistakes or the things that are happening, just whoosh, let it wash off you, because none of it matters. And that's one of the things that I tell my team all the time is, make the mistakes. It's not a big deal. We can always fix whatever happens. And there's really nothing you guys can do that's going to take the company down. And because that's where I operate, and I legit, honestly operate and think that way, and ask my team, they'll tell you the same thing, I let it just wash off me. We make a mistake. We do these things. Or, we're in the middle of a launch right now, and some of our ads were running to the countries we don't want to target. And we had a ton of unqualified people coming in, and, it was a little frustrating at first, but you just let it wash off. You have clear communication. You talk in an empowering way of like how to fix the problem. And I think that's the main thing, is that when you are in the emotions, you're not in a place of actually fixing the problem or making it better. So what I've always done is just kind of like taken a step back, kind of relaxed a little bit, not made immediate decisions. And then when those times do come up where I am making an emotional decision or emotional communication, I make a point to go in and fix it. as well if it caused some kind of damage. So that's number one, or number two, and that's something that I'm still constantly working on, is the emotional reactions and decision making. But this can also go the other way. Just so you guys know, this isn't just like the emotions of anger, and this isn't just the emotions of frustration and sadness and stuff like that. This is also the emotions of love and the emotions of happiness and the emotions of, excitement, which are, quote unquote, good emotions. There's been times where I've kept people on the team for a really long time when they shouldn't have been there because of the emotion, the connection, because I really like them. I didn't want to fire them. I thought things could change, and I've kept them on the team for a really long time. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Well, actually, we'll talk about it now. What that did was it set a really poor standard, because the team member that I'm thinking of didn't hit the goals that were required, didn't really live in the standards of the company. And then when the entire team gets the witness that they get off the hook, then it brings morale down. It brings the culture down. It lets them know that they can slack off. But when you set the standard, you hold the standard, and there's no emotions involved. It's just, this is the standard. You either hit it or you don't. You start to create a company and a system and a process that operates like a well-oiled machine, because everyone knows what the standard is. Everyone knows what happens if you go beneath the standard. And you really have to be able to pull out and operate outside of the good emotions too. I really care about my team, and I just think back to Taylor, for example. I really care about Taylor, and I care about her well-being, and I'm really grateful for her and grateful for everything she's done for me and grateful for everything she's done inside the company. And, she's like a sister to me. And those are all great emotions, but I can't let those emotions stop me from communicating to her effectively. Like, if she makes a mistake, I can't be like, oh, it's just Taylor, I don't want to hurt her feelings. I really care about her. I have to be able to hold myself to the standard of just, hey, I think that this could have been done better, or this needs to be done better. Or like, here was a mistake, or, on the flip side of that, also letting her know when things are really good. I can't just be like, okay, great, I really care about Taylor. She just assume she knows that, I have to be able to pull myself out of the emotions to be able to communicate and operate within the team on both sides, the good and the bad. Because when you really care about someone and someone's well-being and stuff like that, you tend to let them off the hook a lot easier. So remember, the emotion and decision-making, the communication, it goes both ways. So if you can pull yourself out of that emotional state and make decisions and communication from those places, you tend to have a better, well-oiled machine. There's a lot more respect between the team. Everyone knows the standards. And this isn't just teams, this is clients and students and your audience as well. So number 3 is chasing money and not sticking to one thing. This was a big mistake that I made, and it's to be honest with you, this is a recurring mistake that I make all the time. I just haven't learned my lesson with it, I guess. I'm obviously a lot better with it, but we all have it. We all have the shiny object syndrome, where as entrepreneurs, we always have these like really amazing creative ideas that we want to go chase. We're like, oh, this is going to make us so much money. And it might. But what you don't realize is how much money are you losing by going and chasing this thing. How much more money would you make if you put 100% effort into this one thing over here? So let's say you have this one thing over here. It's making you $50,000 a year, and it's growing. And then you have this other opportunity that came up and you make $20,000 from it, but it took 2 or 3 months away from you, or however long. How much money did that growing $50,000 are you missing out on now because you went to go chase $20,000? It's like this growing thing. It's like if you have a plant in a garden and you start watering it and it's growing amazingly and it's growing huge, it's like let's call it an orange tree, and it's about to produce, it's like in year 2 or 3 and it's producing a couple oranges a year, and you go like, great, this is working so good. I'm going to go plant an apple tree and a lemon tree, and I'm going to go do that. And I'm watering them all the time, taking care of them all the time, taking care of them all the time. Oh, I'm going to come back and kind of water this thing over here. And before you know it, the orange tree stops producing, it stops growing because you've taken on all these other things. But when you can focus on one thing and you do it really well, you start to achieve a level of mastery at that one thing. you start to do it better than everyone else. You start to get those unique angles and perspectives and teach in a way that no one has taught before, or have a service that no one has experienced before. Having the one thing and getting the mastery of that one thing allows for bigger, better growth. And not only just from that standpoint, when you have multiple things, how on earth do you expect to have clear messaging? Even sometimes having multiple offers can totally screw up your messaging. But when it's one thing, one program, one offer, or one method that you sell on a couple different levels like we do, you start to get a level of mastery of it. You start to communicate it better. Everyone knows what you stand for. And you start to see the results of that. And I remember this one time, and actually this one came up because I asked Matt before the show. I'm like, Matt, since you've been here, I think in the last year and a half, I think he's been here for about a year and a half, what's been the biggest mistake that I've made? And this is what he told me. And there was a time when he first came on and we were kind of figuring out what the service was going to be. We took on a client and we were chasing the money. It was a big client. Potentially could have been at least $250,000 a year, if not more. They were going to give us a percentage of what we were creating with them. And we didn't do our due diligence on it. And we kind of chased the money, and it deviated from what the agency actually did. It was something we could do. It was like they wanted us to help develop a course and to go sell it and to do all of this stuff. And technically we could have done that. But it wasn't what we did. It wasn't the agency. It wasn't the model of the agency. It wasn't what made the agency successful. It was us chasing money versus sticking to the one thing that we do. And I'm not going to throw too many numbers out there just because I don't remember exactly what we have in contracts and stuff. But the deal, we got paid at six figures to do some work that we did, and then they were going to move us onto a percentage on top of that. And to take that six figures and to see how much it took away from what was growing, what was our orange tree at the time, what it took away from that, I started to realize, yes, we made six figures. Well, I'm not even going to say we brought in six figures because I don't think we really made anything. But when we look at that, we actually lost money because of what we could have created with that time, the resources, the money, what we could have done with all of that stuff in the same amount of time, all the effort, all the energy it took to create the things that we created with them. We could have just put it into our own stuff. We would have made way more. It would have been multiple six figures we could have done with our own stuff had we taken the same amount of time and resources and energy to go execute on. But chasing money and chasing those things and not sticking to the one thing that we're really good at and evolving that and growing that, it costs us money. And not only just looking at the cost of money, but if we look beneath the surface, when we start to do that, it starts to affect the vision. Your team, it causes confusion on the team. What are we doing? Why are we doing that? It causes divide. Not everyone's aligned. The culture gets changed because there's a vision. You want your team in alignment of the vision, but when you chase something, you completely change the vision. When you do things outside the alignment of the vision, it starts to cause confusion on the team. It's chaotic. They're all over the place because you're all over the place. So that's number 3. So just to recap, we have not focusing on teams soon enough, and then in combination with that, not setting up the system for the team to thrive. And by the way, if you hate systems like I do, once your team starts to come on, you can have them develop the systems as well. Number 2 is not operating within emotions and not making decisions and communication from an emotional state, both good and bad emotional states. Number 3 is not sticking to one thing and chasing the money. Number 4 is going to be more of a personal life thing. But one of the mistakes I've made in business, and again, I still do from time to time, but obviously getting better, is letting the business affect my life, family, and values. Most people don't realize that your business is a result of the life that you have outside of the business, not the other way around. And I think a lot of people say my life is a result of the business. The business is a result of your life. What I mean by that is if you go home and you're surrounded in love with the people that you love, great relationships, great communication, you're present, you give the moments to your family that they need and that you need, how much more of a better business owner are you going to be when you show up the next day? Can you imagine trying to grow a business where your spouse doesn't feel like they're getting the attention they need? Your kids don't feel like they're getting the attention you need. The household is full of chaos and the household is full of resentment and the household is full of like people not getting their needs met. And you go home and then you come back the next day and try to build a business from that place, from that environment. Good luck. And that took me a really, really long time to realize. And again, it's not perfect because sometimes there's going to be carryover. Sometimes there's going to be really tough times in the business where you have to make tough decisions or mistakes happen. Or like for us, our Facebook ads account got hacked and $60,000 got put on my credit card that, by the way, still hasn't been refunded to me. Like you go home in those moments, it's hard to kind of separate it. But if you make a conscious effort, you live in the moment, you're aware of it, and you adjust and you change, what starts to happen is that you become a better business owner because you show up the next day filled and happy and ready to take on the world. And here's the thing that I've learned, because it hasn't, my wife's been with me. We were married, or we started dating when we were 15 and 16 years old. So and we broke up one time for a month in between that. So we've pretty much been together since we were 15 and 16. So she's been on this entire journey with me. And I've had those moments that a lot of you guys might be facing, which is my spouse doesn't support me, or my spouse is questioning all of this, or I'm not getting the support I need. And I'm willing to bet usually why that stuff happens is because your spouse isn't getting what they need. Your spouse isn't getting what they need in order to support you. So when I've learned that from my wife, that usually if my wife gets her needs met, she says, Brandon, I want more one-on-one time. I want you to plan out a date. I want to cuddle on the couch, which for me, I'm like, I don't need cuddling. Like to be honest with you, I find it uncomfortable. Like I just want to relax on the couch. Like it's not my thing, but that's what she needs and that's what she wants. And I find out those things that here's what she needs. And if I give her those things, I actually get what I need in return. I get the support when I go to follow my dreams. I get the support to do X, Y, and Z. And my wife doesn't need much. During all this, she's like, I just need a roof over my head. I need to know that like things are going to be okay. And I need to, and I want a family. So I made sure that her needs were met. And when her needs are met, I actually got what my needs were. And when most people, and I forget, it might have been Jim Fortin or it might have been Tony Robbins. I don't remember who said it. But they said it doesn't take two people to change a relationship. It takes one. And a lot of times we get into our ego and we say things like, well, I don't get what I want, so why should they get what they want? I can guarantee and I can promise you right now, if you give your family what they want, they will give you what you want. And when that harmony starts to happen and when that harmony is created, you show up as a better business owner. You start to show up stronger. You start to show up happier. You start to show up without getting in your head. And you have a team of people back home who support you on anything, even if the business fails. And I know right now that if I go home and tell them the business failed, I got to start over, I'm going to have the support. And I didn't really understand this for the first few years, actually for the first probably 6 years of growing my business. And to be honest with you, it wasn't really, I didn't realize how bad it was until about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, when I took a trip to the Bahamas with my family, with my kids, my wife, and I didn't work at all. And I didn't have to work at all because of mistake number one, teams and systems. So Taylor was here. I don't know if Matt was here yet, but like everything was pretty much running without me. And I didn't really need to get on the computer. And she told me, I don't know if you realize this, but you haven't been on the phone or the computer once. This is the first time in 6 or 7 years that we've actually taken a trip and you didn't need to be on anything. And then that's when it hit me. I let the business affect my life, my personal life, and it causes friction. And I don't want friction because I want to be the best at what I do. I want to have the mastery over what it is that I do. And we all need a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. We all need that support to get through life. And again, family doesn't need to be just immediate families. It could be brothers, sisters, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, close friends, all of it. That's mistake number 4. And the last and final mistake is actually thinking that I can make a mistake. That thinking these mistakes were bad. That was the biggest thing. And the reason why is because if you choose to look at these mistakes as lessons, you will find the gift that they're giving you, because I guarantee you and I promise that every single down moment or time that you perceive as bad is leaving you with a gift. And it's your choice to choose whether you want to take that gift or to ignore that gift. And I've learned over the years, it's much better to take that gift, to see it as a gift, because that's what it is. And you're not going to avoid making mistakes, but it's the way you perceive the mistake. The mistake just means, well, actually, I don't even know what a mistake really means, but a mistake just means that you took an action and it wasn't good, or you perceive it as not good, therefore it's a mistake. But all that's going on is you're just taking action and you're living an experience. And living that experience is what gives you the gift. If you want to label a mistake and say that it was bad and it shouldn't happen and yada, 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 go ahead and do that. But my question to you is, what benefit do you get from that? Because you do get a benefit. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. So either the benefit is it's not my responsibility that stuff happened. I don't have to take the blame for it. Or you get to play the victim card or something like that. But at the end of the day, you took an action, you got a result. And if it's not the result that you were hoping for, great. What's the lesson? Take the lesson, do it again. To me, I wouldn't perceive these as a mistake. And when I asked Matt today, what's the biggest mistake I've made since you've been here? He said, this is the thing. We did this client, we did da-da-da-da-da. But then he followed up with, but I wouldn't label it a mistake, because we learned so much. We shifted so much. It was a vital piece in our journey that we had to take. And that perspective is not only going to help you through life or business, but it's going to help you through life. And through all of these things that I talked about with you guys today, I became a stronger leader. I became a stronger CEO. I became a stronger and better parent, a more loving parent. I became a better spouse, a better husband. I became a better brother. I became a better son through all of these things that I just talked about with you guys today. It made me choose how to talk to my team better. It showed me how to make better investments with my money. There's so much value that came out through the things that I talked to you guys today on this podcast. So although it's labeled the top 5 mistakes, what it really should be labeled is the top biggest gifts that I got from life. Because without those, there's no way that I would be here today. There's no way that I would have a multi-million-dollar business. There's no way that I would own my own home and have the dream car and all these other material things that people try to chase. But I'm just so grateful for it all. I'm grateful for my office. I'm grateful for the gear. I'm grateful for all of my team members who support me and support the vision. I'm just grateful for so much stuff. And I would have none of it had I bypassed any of the things, any of the experience that I covered today in this podcast. So my hope for you is to not have you avoid these mistakes, but have a level of awareness on how to navigate these things if you do experience them, so that you can still learn the lesson, but don't have to live in more of the quote unquote suffering than you need to. Because I definitely lived in the more suffering than I needed to in these experiences. So with that, what I would love for you guys to do is, what was the biggest breakthrough or aha moment for you? And then what I want you to do is to post it on Instagram stories and tag I am Brandon Lucero, screenshot this podcast, write your biggest breakthrough, share it on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick someone with the most powerful breakthrough, and we're going to give them a $20 gift card to Starbucks. Coffee on us for the week. So go do that now. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week on another episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.